So the real meat of what I want to talk about today is that we're nowhere near that. We are nowhere near that development of care and knowledge in our world, okay? And then certainly nowhere near acting rightly upon it. We are still in a state where we are controlled by the puppet masters of the world. We are still in a state where we believe politics is real. We actually believe that it matters who we vote for, whether we vote for one master over another master, okay? When we're all enslaved by the system called government, okay? And the system called the belief in authority. You know, we're all puppets on the string following the dictates of the masters, and if we don't obey, then the masters send their henchmen to punish us in whatever ways they see fit. That's not freedom. You know, voting for that certainly isn't freedom. Okay? It's a belief system. And what it really is, folks, is a religion, as I'm going to talk about. That this is a religious worldview that, you know, left and right hands are not connected to the same body. Okay? That they're, you know, that we somehow are engaging some true freedom of choice, picking a political master. And folks, they have us right where they want us. These social engineers, they've done a better job, as I'm going to give you actual numbers to prove, of politically polarizing people through this dialectical process of giving people a false choice, which is what dialectics is. It's advancing a predetermined agenda by presenting people with false choices that they get to choose from. But no matter which choice they make, the predetermined agenda is advanced. That's what the Hegelian dialectic in particular is, and that's what I call polarization dialectics. You're creating a false war between people, but no matter who comes out, no matter what choice is made, the actual slavery system advances in its march toward totalitarianism. And people still don't understand this. You know, how many people are still so-called politically engaged or thinking that voting for somebody is going to change something? Never has, never will. Because you're not voting to abolish slavery. You're voting to put a new slave master into that position of power, so-called power. They're not even the person in power. They're being held by an oligarchical group of occult priest class slave masters that sits behind them at a higher hierarchical level than those who are at the seen political level are at in the whole system of control. So what I want to look at today is how bad this political polarization has gotten in the modern world. Okay? So the polarization dialectics are driven largely by political polarization, or what has traditionally been referred to as the left-right political paradigm, or the left versus right political paradigm. In other words, you have conservative, liberal versus conservative, Democrat versus Republican. Okay? And, you know, we need to stop just even calling this politics. We need to even stop calling it left versus right, polarization between the political parties. You know, I call it cult polarization because you're really choosing between the donkey cult and the elephant cult. These are just cults, okay? They're religious cults. That's all they are. They're not based on anything that is actually existing inherently in reality. They are belief systems that are driven by religious thought. And the religious thought that underlies it all is the belief in human authority, that some people are masters and others are slaves, which I'm going to analyze and break down. And the people who actually engage in these systems are simply cult members. That's all they are. They are members of religious cults. That's what politics is, okay? And they have to give you two because they have to mirror the abandonment issues that are the deeply underlying psychological occult factors of why people are drawn to one political party or the other. The left, or the so-called liberal, I would refer to it as the neoliberal party, okay, is all about the motherly abandonment issues. So what does it want government to provide? Okay, in this nested deep, subconscious psychological driven factor of having mommy issues, okay, or having motherly abandonment issues. This aspect of the cult of government always wants their political masters to provide for them. Provide something that is lacking. Take care of us. Be the nurturer. Be the one who gives us things for free out of concern and love. Okay? Not to teach us to do for ourselves. Okay? But say, demand obedience to their aspect, their definition of morality and contribution to other people. Don't do that through charity. Do that through, actually passing violent-driven political laws under man's law. Okay? The point here is this is a motherly abandonment issue dynamic that is going on deep in the nested, often subconscious or unconscious aspects of the psychology. And then we project that into the external domain. And then we want government to become the mother that was either lacking or absent, okay, that we found lacking in our own developmental lives or absent in our developmental lives, okay? Then the opposite side of the spectrum is the Republican, or the conservative aspect. And this is the people who identify with this largely have the daddy issues, okay? And this is the fatherly abandonment issue. So what do the people project and want from this side of the political class? They want protection. They want it to be this strong father figure to go out and police the rest of the world and keep everybody safe, which is the traditional masculine role, okay? And you see that that's why there always have to be just two, because they are proxy parents psychologically. See, this is what people never get to with the whole political paradigm. They never get to that occult understanding of what it is. When you hit people with this and they really get it and they see it as true, which it is, okay, then they're like, their mind is blown and they're like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. But yet the occult controllers did. That's why they set this system up this way. They very deeply know what's going on in the mass human psychology, and the bulk of the people do not. And that's why easy prey. Very easy prey. It's a child's game for them, actually. Okay? And, they're not concerned about me. They're not going to take a hit or a swat at me. Not going to happen. They've already told me as such in so many words. Okay? That I'm not important enough because so few people understand this at a mass level that what I'm doing is not going to make that big of a dent in it unless way, way more people start paying attention to what I'm saying. Okay? And getting it at a deep level. And then not just getting it, not just understanding it, but then acting upon it. That's when they'll become concerned. They're not concerned right now, folks. People say, why do they let Passio talk about this? Because they are completely unconcerned with the reach of my voice at this time. That's the reason they'll let me continue to talk and talk endlessly. They're laughing at what I do. Satanists and occultists have told me this. It is a comedy show. This is a comedy show to them. Okay? Because they know how far away from this understanding humanity really is. And, that they know that even out of the potential viewing audience, there are people who are saying, I'm completely wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about, even though I've been on the inside of this power structure and control system. Okay? And I've been on the inside of their religion. And yet there are people who will insist, no, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know better than you, even though I've never been anywhere near it. Okay? It's like, I liken it to trying to describe what living inside of a city is like, even though you've never been there. And then telling somebody who's lived there their entire life exactly what the city they lived in their entire life is like when you've never even visited it. Okay? And that's where a lot of people are at when it comes to my work. So folks, I don't care what you call either of these cult beliefs. It doesn't make a difference to me because I call it what it really is, slavery. Okay? That's what all politics, that's what all government is. Doesn't matter what kind of government. It's all driven by violence. It's slavery. Okay? We need to stop euphemizing things and calling it what they want us to call it in slave language. Okay? Stop using their slave language that they've given to us to use euphemistically and start calling it what it really is. Government is slavery. Okay, I'm going to open and close all the shows with that phrase to hammer it into the human consciousness as much as I can. Government is slavery. Okay, there's another tagline for the show. Get as offended as you like. Government is slavery. Okay, this is what we need to understand at a deep philosophical level. Because when we strip it all away, it's not backed by anything by violence. It's not isn't underlined by deep philosophy or truth or morality. It's underlined by commands of compliance that there are punishments for not complying with, whether those commands happen to be in keeping with real morality or not. Because in one place, they could gauge a behavior as moral, and in another place, they could lock you in a cage for doing the exact same thing, which is the definition of moral relativism. Okay? So I want to show people some charts of political polarization throughout the years and how bad it's gotten. Okay, and to give proper credit here, okay, I do want to show people briefly before I go into this section where I got this data. Okay, because in my presentations, I'm not giving those parameters. Okay, so I just want to do that outside of the presentation slides. I'm going to very briefly switch over to my to my web browser in a moment. I'll tell you when to switch to that. Yes, you can switch over to that. Okay, and this is a website called Pew Research Center, and it's a political research center for United States politics. So this is particularly specifically dealing with U.S. politics, okay? And this is a page that dealt with the results of their studies in political polarization from the years 1994 through the years 2017. So you can look this up yourself. I just basically, to get to this, typed into any given search engine. I particularly have been using DuckDuckGo lately, which doesn't track you to the extent that other search engines like Google do. And I typed in political polarization charts. That's it. And this was my first result that came back for me. Knowing that I was going to talk about this dynamic, this site gives you some nice visual charts for polarization, and you could choose the year here, and then it will switch and show you how that dynamic of polarization between the two political parties, Democrat and Republican, changed in that time frame. Okay, so and you could also look at politically engaged versus the general public and see how those dynamics differ there as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just switch back to my my presentation, and I'm just going to show people how these this political polarization changed throughout the last couple of decades and how it's grown far worse. Okay, so let me go back into the presentation and continue here. So this is 1994. And again, I'm using the general public. This isn't the politically engaged aspect, just the general public and how they identified in their views as to whether they came down on the left or right side of believing in the political left or the political right, or the Democrat or Republican. The line displays the median, which is the very middle of the bell curve kind of, okay, numbers wise. So in 1994, look at how much overlap there was between the political parties. And the dark blue area is showing where they overlapped in their viewpoints, okay? And then you have that middle line, that was where the average person was. And look at how close to the center it is. Very slightly right of center, meaning the country was a little bit more toward the conservative side of things back in 1994. But in general, there were, obviously extremists on both sides regarding their cult views. But, you have this pretty close central gauge there in the median lines. Okay, so the country was more centrist politically and was not really, we weren't like at war between the two polarized political dynamics. This is what I'm trying to show people, is that things have gotten worse, not better, as you will see as we go forward in these slides. If they were to get better, people would generally, one, stop believing in government altogether, but two, you would see more overlap in the parties because they would generally not be thinking politically polarized things. They would not be able to be divided dialectically. And when you divide a public dialectically, they're ripe for conquer. That's what the whole divide and conquer strategy is all about. Okay, so moving to the year 1999, you see that the median shifted a little bit toward the left. Okay, now we're a little bit maybe slightly left of center, but we have a pretty big mixed viewpoint in the center where you had a lot of political overlap and not a lot of polarization between the parties back in 99. Okay, so I'm moving to the next slide, which is 2004. Now, you see again, it's still slightly left of center, but lots of overlap. Okay, so we're not even as of, when Bush was still president, okay, we're still seeing a pretty centrist view politically. Now, we're going to see it start to really change here during the Obama administration. Okay, and now we have political polarization happening where you can see there's less overlap. We're getting more of a median left of center for Democrats and more of a median right of center, and those median lines are separating now. Okay, and that's 2011, and now you're going to see in the last few years how bad it has really gotten, and this is proof the mind control, the propaganda, okay, the mainstream media polarization of divide and conquer. It's working. It's actually more efficient than it was in the past, okay? Look at 2014. Okay, still Obama president, okay? But look at how wide that gap has gotten now between the political medians, okay? And this left-right paradigm is being enforced, and it's growing in the general minds, the minds of the general population, okay? And now they're seeing each other as we're completely separate, we're at war with each other ideologically, okay? Now, look at, it grows a little bit even more as we go further into the year 2015. And now look at the divide as of less than 2 years ago. And this obviously is the Trump era, okay? And this is a result of how far politically left the left is going as a reaction to Trump coming in. You don't see a lot of movement with the median Republican, although it has shifted from back in 94 a little bit right of center. But look at the median Democrat. Now, if you put the politically engaged aspects of this chart that I showed you on, it's even worse than this, and there's even less of a mix between the two polarized political parties' worldviews, okay? So this is proof right here from actual, gathered data from society, how far in the political polarization we have gone, particularly in the Trump era, which is, created this idea of Trump derangement syndrome. And, I don't even know how people can take whoever is president seriously and actually believe that there are people in power and making these decisions. I mean, you have to be a naive child to really believe that the whole political polarization worldview, okay? It's just there to get people to continue to choose a slave master. That's all it's there for. So what I want to show people is what I call the real political spectrum. I covered this in, my earlier podcast format. And this is what I call the political spectrum, or the so-called political spectrum, as a function of consciousness. So this isn't really a political spectrum, okay? It's taking what people consider the political spectrum and graphing it against consciousness and control in society. What we're really gauging here is how much control externally is imposed upon society through violence and coercion of government, okay, versus how much consciousness there is in society, or how enlightened the mass population is. So a mathematical function means there's only going to be one result on the graph in between the two axes. Okay, there can't be two values when we plot points on the chart. Okay, that's the definition of a mathematical function. So you see the line goes up and then it comes back down, and there's never 2 points where there's different values. So the bottom axis has its 0 point in the center. Okay, and I did this deliberately to show how freedom is a precarious position. It's a very narrow straight to tread. Okay, it is like teetering on the point of a pin. Okay, not even the head of a pin, but the point of a pin. Okay, and when we go away from true moral philosophy, it's a very steep slope downward on both sides, whether you come down on the left or the right of the illusory political spectrum, okay? So where you have totalitarian rule is on the outsides of that bottom axis, okay? Where it says total external government control based on coercion and violence, or coercion and control, external government based on coercion and control. So you would have totalitarianism in the form of either communism, if you're looking at this from the traditional or established leftist point of view, versus fascism on the far right. Okay, but it doesn't really matter. You can mirror this about the horizontal axis and understand the same thing from the chart. Okay, that there's totalitarian control when there's an unconscious population that does not understand true self-government and that still believes in the traditional political spectrum or believes in the cult called government. So as we go slightly inward toward the 0 point, which represents freedom and no externalized imposition of violence and control through government, we have, socialism and what I would call crony capitalism, or what other people would just simply refer to as capitalism, in the left and right side. So you're having slightly more less control, and it's like a mask of totalitarianism. You're just masking the fact that the society is enslaved as you go a little bit further in toward the center of the graph. Then you come to what were traditional republics, kind of like what the United States was originally founded upon, a constitutional republic. And they could be based on the ideas of classical liberalism and minarchism, or classical conservatism, the right-wing form of a limited form of republican government. Okay, republic meaning a government that is the people gets to decide what the powers of the government will be, but it still institutes government. Then as you get closer to the top, you have what would be either slightly left-leaning libertarianism or slightly right-leaning libertarianism, as you get a little bit more conscious, okay? But it's still minarchism. We're still not going all the way to the truth of true anarchy, meaning no imposed rulers, meaning true freedom for all from a spiritual point of view in harmony with natural law, and bringing our behaviors into alignment with the moral laws of creation, meaning that we know what rights are and what they are not. We know what true property is versus what it is not. And we choose willfully, through conscience, through the knowledge of the objective difference between right and wrong, to engage in right behavior over wrong behavior. That is what true freedom is. Okay? So this is the real political spectrum, not the false political polarization that we saw in the chart in the former section. Okay? And I think if people study this graph, they'll gain a lot from understanding, how I've set this up to help people to understand where we really need to go in consciousness and what that will create externally in society as a whole. So moving to the next slide, how close are we to that state in the aggregate human condition? Do people understand that that's how these dynamics work and are driven? I would say we are certainly not moving in the direction of knowledge, but we are moving deeper and deeper into the levels of ignorance, and proud ignorance, I might say. There are people who are very comfortable to have their head in the sand and ignoring the reality that we are really living in. And when you bring it up to them, they consider it's such an uncomfortable topic that they don't even want to talk about it. Okay? They don't even want to engage in it at all. They want to be comfortable in their ignorance and live in a bubble. And again, I've said before on the show, to be in this position, to have your head in the sand, you have to have your ass in the air. And then we know what happens next. Okay? Not to be joking about it, but it's a very good little allegorical thing that happens to just be the case. Okay? And this is where most of society is at. Okay? And it's sad. It's very sad. And the reason it's sad, and what I'm going to start to get into here a little bit, is, how I feel about the human condition right now, and where I think why I'm sad, angry, and outraged and bitter about it. Okay. And it's because it doesn't need to be this way. This is a choice, especially in society today. This is a choice. It's a huge choice. Okay. Because we have the free will to edify ourselves and to come to the understanding of truth. It's all out there. It's all there. The apocalypse has happened, folks. It's all revealed. It's been revealed for many, many years. We lived through apocalyptic times. See, people think apocalypse means destruction. It does not. It comes from the Greek apo, meaning to remove or to take away, and kalyptine, meaning to hide or to conceal, similar to how occultare in Latin means to hide or to conceal. So apocalyptine means to take away the veil, to remove the veil, or to reveal that which has been hidden. It's the revealing of what has been occulted. And that has happened. Past tense, has occurred. We are in post-apocalyptic times. And yet, this is still the human condition, ignoring the truth. When a society as a whole on a planet living in the universe says to truth, go F yourself, I want no part of you, the path that lies ahead is going to be not only a treacherous one, it is going to be what I call the way of maximum pain. And that's where we're headed as a species, folks. And I wish I could tell you differently. I wish I could say that it's some way that is different than that. But there's no indicators that allow me to say with any positivity or confidence that we're heading in the right direction. Because I don't see it around me. And it's not just that I don't see it around me. I don't see it no matter where I go geographically in the world. I could travel anywhere. And, at little pockets, conferences, tiny little pockets that are trying to get the word out to people they're disparagingly puny, okay? Tiny little pockets of people really get it and understand. But then you have them drowning in the ignorant hordes of humanity everywhere. And I try to gauge the consciousness dynamic from a stepping back and looking at it as it really is, not what I want it to be. Because it's very easy to try to see it from where you want it to be versus where it really is. I try not to go the opposite. I try not to say, I'm going to just look at this from a totally dark, negative perspective. I try to be a realist when it comes to it, based on what I know the requirements are regarding where we have to get in consciousness. And then you could see that gap is just, I can't put my arm high enough to visually display that gap. Can't be done. Okay? The gap is tremendous. And there's no signs of it closing. There's signs of it widening. All right? I don't want it to be like that. I'm not saying that to discourage anybody. I'm trying to accurately tell the viewing audience what our work together is to do. That's my goal here, is to inspire you to get involved in doing what I've been doing for the last 11 going on 12 years of my life. Okay? And maybe if more people really engage their will to do it, we'd make some headway. Maybe. But a lot of people want to just pat people on the back. Oh, pat you on the back. Great job, Mark. Hey, can you help me out? Go F yourself. Can't be bothered. I got my own life to live. Can't be bothered to help you with what you're doing to try to enlighten humanity, help to enlighten humanity. No, I'm going to live my life in the selfish way I want to live it because that's what's comfortable for me. I'll pat you on the back and tell you how well you're doing. I'm not interested in that, folks. Never have been. Not interested. I don't want praise. I don't do this for praise. I don't do this to make friends, obviously. Okay? I'm trying to be real with people, tell them where we're really at, what's coming if we don't turn this around, okay? And get them to be engaged through an act of their understanding and their will. All right? Human beings are still mentally attached to completely false axiomatic premises. Okay? So, this is the condition of humanity. Totally wrapped up in their own minds and their own illusions, totally controlled by the social engineers, all right, continuing to march in a lobotomized state toward total enslavement. And that's not fear-mongering. That's not what people call fear porn. That's an accurate assessment of the human condition based on deep and very thorough analysis of the human condition. And if you don't come to that conclusion, I would say your data set is skewed. It's off. Your perception is skewed and off. And you're not looking at things from a detached, non-emotional, objective point of view if you haven't come to that same conclusion. Again, not saying that to discourage anybody, explaining what are the causal factors that are really leading to humanity to be where it's at and to continue down that path of enslavement. So what is an axiom? This is a word that I've kicked around in the past and never really given people a good definition of, I don't think. So this is where people are stuck in their mind control, okay? This is where they're stuck in their perception, their perceptual capabilities. They have accepted false axioms. An axiom is a fundamental belief that is widely accepted as true because it is perceived to be either self-evident or particularly useful to those who have accepted it. Okay, and this is where we run into trouble. Axioms can be true or they can be false. Okay, if an axiom is true, that means you are basing your higher level mathematics upon the axiom that 1 + 1 = 2 in arithmetic and 2 + 2 = 4 in arithmetic. If you base your fundamental axiom that 1 + 1 = 5 in arithmetic and 2 + 2 = 10 in arithmetic, you are going to run into very high level problems as you go into more advanced mathematics, such as algebra or calculus, or, doing differential equations, or, probability and statistics, etc., or then into higher level physics. You are not going to have accurate results if your fundamental axioms are based on untruths. And this is what's going on in society. We are basing our fundamental axiomatic belief systems upon things which are not true. And when we build bigger structures and bigger aspects of society based on things that aren't true, what do we get? We get nonsense, we get chaos, we get destruction, we get disorder, we get death. Okay? And that's where we're at as a society, which is eventually going to lead to an imbalance physically in nature and the planet, and we're going to get shrugged off of it like fleas off the back of a dog. And that eventuality will occur at some point if we don't change. And the main fundamental axiom that has to change is the belief in authority. Okay, this is the main underlying fundamental false axiom that comprises a religion and ultimately comprises a cult. The belief, or the axiom that it is based upon, is the belief in human authority. Authority is an illusion of a diseased psyche, based entirely in violence and built upon the erroneous and dogmatic belief that some people are masters who have the moral right, quote unquote, to rule others, while others are slaves who have a moral obligation, quote unquote, to obey the so-called masters. That is what government actually is. That is what authority is, and government is based entirely upon it. In the meme here, it says, imagine being forced into a religion that you cannot opt out of. It's called government. It exists, and it's called government. And this is what I call the world's most dangerous religion. Larkin Rose wrote a book called The World's Most Dangerous Superstition, which is about this belief in authority. I highly recommend it. I call it the world's most dangerous religion, or simply the world's most dangerous cult, because that's what this is, a cult belief system. And if our axiomatic beliefs are based in a cult belief system that's based in violence and completely based in something that is completely not true and does not actually exist in the inherent realm of nature, which is what is absolutely the truth regarding authority. It is not something that is true or based in the realm of nature. It is a constructural idea that exists in a diseased mind. We are going to build all kinds of things on top of that false belief system that are going to do exactly what we say we do not want to happen in our society, and we are going to get a result that we do not want. That is going to be the polar opposite of what we say we want our society to look like and be like. Moving to the next slide. We don't have people in our society today, folks, that are really deeply trying to do anything about this, okay? We have people who say they want to do things about this, say they want to make it different. I call them the keyboard commandos, the keyboard warriors. They have arrived to fight the Facebook war. They're going to go and get them on Facebook, okay? Instead of actually really creating creative content and putting it out there with your name, your face, your voice on it, okay? And doing it in a way that is visually appealing, that really explains the conceptual ideas in a deep way and helps people to gain an accurate fundamental understanding of them. No, just go out and shout at people on Facebook. You're not changing anybody's mind. They're not changing yours, okay? All it is a verbal masturbation contest. And that's what most people are doing, thinking that they're going to affect change. Let me tell you something, folks. Let me burst your bubble. Let me offend you right here. You are not going to make any change posting anything on Facebook, ever. It's not going to happen. It's not a powerful or effective enough medium. And you have so many people that are so highly ignorant that know no part of this. And you're in too much noise. There's not enough room for the signal to get through. Now, I'm streaming this on Facebook to try to get people to look at my work that I've put up on my website. Okay, that means you leave the internet ghetto city that's been constructed for you. Okay, that is a controlled paradigm. It's a controlled pig pen is what it really is. Okay, and then you go to a palace that someone has constructed. to help you to gain, or it's a school. It's an elaborate school that someone has constructed with meticulous craftsmanship and precision. Sorry to toot my own horn a little bit there, folks, but I think I've done a job that is far better than almost just about everybody else in gaining, helping people to gain a full worldview understanding of what's really taking place, okay, through whatonearthishappening.com. I see very few websites that are anything like it whatsoever, okay? And I see far too few people trying to do something that is akin to what I've done with this website, okay? Which is put out creative, individual, tailored content for a viewing and listening audience to really truly edify themselves and come to an accurate understanding of the dynamics that are taking place in our world. And that's why it's called What on Earth is Happening without a question mark, okay? So the Facebook keyboard commandos, you're not going to make that much progress. And this is what it makes me feel like, you know? It makes me feel like, my God, we're doomed, you know? And then people will, like, you know, get angry at me and be like, you know, I hope Mark isn't going to be super harsh toward people, you know? But you have to put yourself in my shoes, right? You have to imagine you're doing this for 12 years now. And not only aren't you seeing it change, but you're seeing it get worse, as I've just proven to you. Not my perception or my just belief. I've just proven to you that the political polarization is worse than it ever has been, okay? That ignorance is at an all-time high, okay? The war between men and women is at an all-time high, okay? Absolutely ridiculous radical neo-feminism is rampant, okay, which is driving that war between the sexes even further into the ground, okay? And, you know, people are still so super identified with their political beliefs, they don't even understand that the entire system is slavery. You know, we were making a lot more headway back in 2004, 5, and 6, as far as I'm concerned, before I even started doing this. So you have to understand my bitterness comes from a realistic perspective, okay? It's not just me wanting to shout at people, okay? It's me looking at the dynamics of human consciousness from an honest and detached perspective and being horrified by it. Horrified by it. And then looking at what I've chosen to dedicate my life to doing. Okay? And we're going to get to your calls, folks. I'm going to wrap up soon. Okay? But I think this is very important. And then we'll go to your calls on Discord. You have to understand, basically giving up just about every other aspect of your life, what you wanted to do, travel, where I wanted to go, places I wanted to see, activities I wanted to engage in, all had to be put to the wayside to do this, you know? And this is what I do full time now. You know, I don't have another job, okay? Any income that I have to make to live, you know, and it's not income, it's just generous donations by people who want to help me to do this work and still live in the 3D world, okay? That's the only place that I bring in those resources. So that's why I want to tell people, if you can, please donate at whatonearthishappening.com/donate, okay? Because, you know, the paltry amount of money that I make compared to the IT career that I gave up to do this it's a negligible thing. It's like a third, less than a third, okay, of what I used to make at my regular quote job, okay? This is the true great work, but that's how much it's valued. You have to understand, that's how much it's valued compared to an employer, what they will actually pay me to go and do services for them. What doing the great work is valued, you know, compared to what a football player, how he's valued, or a baseball player, how he is valued to play like a child's game, okay? This is worth barely anything to people in the aggregate, which is why, you know, the people who have contributed, I hold them at a dear place in my heart and thank them from the bottom of my heart for helping, because you're helping me to be able to do this, you know, on a regular basis. And, you know, the people who donated equipment to make this happen, I really want to especially thank you, because, you know, this is about being technologically literate and being able to reach out to people with this knowledge. And you know who you are, okay? And you know that I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So going back to, you know, what I'm talking about in the presentation here, people will hear the bitterness, and I'll tell them I'm bitter over this. Because I approach it from that initiatory perspective. I'm just going to be honest with you. Okay. I don't feel like being dishonest with people serves them any purpose. It doesn't do anything for any kind of accurate communication of information, nor does it inspire trust. Which is why I'm coming here, I'm dressing like I do on an everyday basis, I'm talking to you with my regular voice, I'm going to get angry at times, I'm going to yell at times, okay? I'm going to be bitter at times. And I'm being who I am. That's it. I'm doing this from where I am, okay? That's honesty, okay? So just wanted to say that. I want to wrap up this with helping people to understand one of the ways that we really can get out of this condition of slavery, and that's by developing true relationships with each other. And it's something that I really haven't talked much about, the relationship dynamic between human beings. And I'm going to really make the show a little bit more about this, hopefully, in the future, because it is about how you can really make a connection between other people. But we have this view of relationship. It's all askew in our understanding. It's very inaccurate of what we think a relationship is, okay? And this is what people think a relationship is. It's like this one-on-one, direct, close connection between two individuals. And I call this relationship in double quotes, okay? This is what I would consider an illusory relationship. It's a nice image. It can convey some, spiritual connection maybe between people, but there's something absent or missing as far as I am concerned. Okay. And in the next slide, I want to show you what I feel is missing when we look at a relationship as only this dynamic between two people. Okay. So when we go to the next slide, I feel like this connection to source or truth is largely absent, especially in what the average human being in the world today considers a relationship between two people. There has to be this unity that is connecting them like a circuit, and that is truth. Okay, we have to care for truth and we have to live truth in our personal lives and in society. Okay, if that connection to truth isn't made first, the relationship between the two individuals is ultimately a false one, or it is ultimately a weak one that is not going to sustain. Okay, and that's what we have in society. We have this connection is largely absent, and we have people trying to establish just interpersonal connections and relationships that don't have this connection to truth first and foremost as their underlying first principles. Okay? We have to make the connection to those underlying first principles first. And here's a better way to look at it. I did a little animation. It's kind of crude, okay? But, this is what I consider a genuine relationship between two individuals, okay, when we have this connection to truth. And I wanted to portray it even better because there's not really two, separate connections. We're all making a connection to the same thing. So I made a little crude animation here that goes like this. We could leave that full screen while I do it. And there's what it really looks like. There's only really that one source of all, and there's only that one ultimate connection to truth that everybody needs to make. And then we can, connect to everybody else in society through that connection to truth. And that's what I consider a true, genuine relationship to be. And this is the first time I kind of visually displayed this and talked about it at a deep level like that. I see this as one of the fundamental solutions in society for how we really relate to people. And you know where you have to start with that? You have to start with being honest to yourself. Being honest with yourself. When you can be honest with yourself and make that connection to truth, then you're in a position to make a genuine relationship with others. And that's what's going to help heal our society and move us toward a future that is based in true human freedom together. And that is the world that is in our hands. That is exactly the world that is in our hands as we speak. It is up to us. Nobody's coming to save us from our own ignorance. Nobody's come to save us from our apathy, from our inaction, okay? We have to do it because the whole idea here is, what are we doing this for, right? Are we just doing it for ourselves? Are we doing it for humanity? And I feel like the answer is neither of those things. We have to do this for truth itself. That's what I consider myself, a servant of truth. I'm not a servant of humanity, okay? Humanity may benefit from the knowledge that I can help to convey, but ultimately, who am I the servant of? I'm the servant of the truth itself, that higher source itself, okay? And when we all make that connection, then we take the world into our own hands and we move it forward by an act of our will, and we will take it to a positive and empowering place. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the true great work really is. That is what the one great work, the true great work, really is. And hence, that is the symbolism of the all-seeing eye, the awakened consciousness, that has gotten this bad rap and a bad explanation of what that symbology really means on the pyramid and all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar bill. As I've broken down before, the true meaning of that is awakened consciousness and a deep connection to the source, to truth, to the creator. And that is what it is all ultimately for: truth, love, and freedom. So with that, that concludes the presentation slides for today's show and the topic for today's show. And we can go back to the main interface. Thank you. And let's go to some callers.